Imagine that you have to do exactly 10 baskets one after the other. The technique must be the same for all of them, meaning that you have to do exactly the same moves and center each time. One way to do that is apply the same mechanism for each time and count to 10 in order to do the right amount of them. How can you automate this process? One way could be to simply loop the same activity for 10 times. This is called a for loop in programming languages. Welcome, my name is Giulia and today we are going to learn what a for loop is. For loop is a fundamental concept in programming that allows computer to repeat a specific block of code multiple times. It is typically used when the number of repetition is known ahead of time. The loop runs through a sequence, like a list or a range of numbers, executing the code inside of it for each item in the sequence, making it useful for tasks like processing a list or counting with a fixed number of steps. Let's go through the process of counting. How exactly does it work? At the beginning, you need to establish if you want to count from 0 or a maximum number, that is the starting point. Then set the limit. For instance, if you start from 0, the limit will be 10. And if you start from 10, the limit will be 0. And last but not least, you need to remember to decrease or increase your count after each basket. In programming, all of these steps are part of the loop declaration. For this part, you just have to establish if you want to start counting from 0 or from 10. In programming, this is called variable initialization. You will declare and initialize a variable at the beginning of the loop. Depending on what you chose for the initial number, you need to have clear in mind how many counts you will have to do to reach the limit. For instance, if you chose 0, your limit will be 10, and if you chose 10, your limit will be 0. Usually in coding, we initialize to 0 and count increasing the number. This is a standard procedure, but you could reverse it as long as the logic stands. The important point to remember is that if you include the 0, the limit should be strictly smaller than 10. If you don't include the 0, the limit should be smaller or equal to 10. How do you count from 0 to 10? For each basket, you increase the number of 1. By doing that, you are changing the amount in your mind and keeping track of how many errors you will need to do before stopping. You are essentially increasing or decreasing the loop counter after each iteration. In for loop, this is part of the loop declaration, but the program will do it automatically after the execution of the block of code. Now that we understood how to deal with the counter, we can start thinking about the actual step that needs to be done in order to center the basket. What's the procedure that you have to follow to accomplish that? You could probably do these steps. 1. Catch the ball. 2. Start running. 3. Jump. And 4. Throw the ball. As for the other loops, this is the actual block of code that will be executed for as many times as you choose. It needs to be as precise as possible. That's because every time the program won't have the exact instruction, it will act without considering your final goal. This could possibly ruin the result that you wanted to achieve. For loops are one of the most used structures in coding. This is because they are easy to set up and you're able to decide the number of iterations at the beginning. They are very useful, but it's also easy to make logic mistakes with them. One important thing to keep in mind is the way the limit affects the number of executions. In other words, they fundamental to work correctly with the symbols equal, equal or great, equal or less, strictly less or strictly greater. For loops aren't just numbers. They can loop through anything that's a sequence. This means that you can use them to go through words, lists, or even emoji. For example, you can loop through a word like this and print each letter one at a time. This is all for today. Thanks for watching the video and see you at the next one. For more content like this, follow us on our social media pages.